You're listening to the Jaybird Watching Podcast, the official podcast of jaysjournal.com and fansided.com. We are the official ballroom chat for everything Toronto Blue Jays baseball, from game highlights to rumors and all the stuff in between. Here's your host, Craig Borden, with co-hosts Jason Lyons and Liz McGuire. Now let's talk some Toronto Blue Jays baseball.
Hello and good evening, everybody, and welcome to the wonderful 500th episode of the Jaybird Watching Podcast. I am your host, Craig Borden, and with me, as always, my buddy Jason. How we doing on the car ride, bud?
You know what? It's a bit of a dreary early afternoon here in Vancouver. We are headed up to Vernon for a hockey tournament, and we're going to go through some snow and some other stuff. But looking forward to a weekend of watching my kid play some hockey against some of Alberta's best hockey teams, and 500. I've had a lot of people reach out and just be like, I can't believe that you guys have made it to 500 episodes. It's a pretty cool thing that you invited me onto this a couple of years ago, and it's just been a blast ever since. Get to hang out with cool people and do cool stuff, and that's pretty awesome.
Yep, and for that special 500th episode, we have our best friend here, Travis Snider. This is your third time on the show, my friend. Welcome back.
Yeah. Hey, glad to be a part of the 500th and a few before this. Congratulations to all you guys.
I appreciate it, bud. And obviously, we are going to be having Liz coming in hot here in a few minutes. She said she was out curling after work, so I hope she's having some very good luck in that. And to that point, I just want to, we've been having so much fun on the show over the years. We've had some wonderful stories. And Travis, I think you still had the best story we've actually legit heard in the comedic ballpark here on this show with the whole Cito Gaston mustache thing. I still see that as one of our highest rated things on all of our social media. Everybody loves that story, and not to mention it's just a fun vibe, period. And that's what we always have shot for here. In the midst of your shenanigans in the major league level, how many other goofballs have you ran into that are quite on that same level with you and the locker rooms that you've had all the years?
I mean,
or are you just the top guy?
No, 15, 16 years. I think on every team you got a few. And depending on how much you want to mess with other guys, you'll find some guys maybe you didn't think had some tricks up their sleeve. I'm just thinking, from the last year that I played to, the first year that I played, all the different dynamics that you have within a clubhouse, all the different cultures that are diffusing in one box, right? Where you're going to battle every night with each other and trying to find ways to keep it interesting. So I was lucky to play with some real tricksters over the years and learned a lot of stuff at a young age. Probably I should have waited a few years to learn.
There it is. So in the midst of these fun things, how crucial is it? We just saw the Blue Jays take the, this whole thing all the way through the World Series. I saw an interview with Ernie Clement the other day. By the time you play all the games that are in the regular season, 162 games, and then you play all the way through to Game 7 of the World Series, you're talking over 180 baseball games. How key is it to keeping it loose when you got that kind of a grind going on?
Yeah, I know fans don't like to hear the cliches, but we're doing our best not to ride the highs and the lows and to find the ways every single day to show up and put in the work, but also make it fun. And I think what we got to see from that team this year is a roster of guys who play for each other, a coaching staff that's built a strong connection with the players, and you see the different personalities that they have from the old guys to the young kids, the guys with experience and no experience. It was a lot of fun to watch them put it all together.
So
I found, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I found it super interesting, and I'd love to get both of your takes on this because I feel like sometimes, Craig, we've been together a long time, buddy, and you are the host. I feel like sometimes you don't get to be able to put your 2 cents worth in, sort of as much as you think it's you want to get your opinion out there. So I feel like the Jays have really, the second that Game 7 was over, they've looked to improve. I think it's the first time since I've been a fan, since I've been doing this, where immediately after, being eliminated, they went into a mode of trying to build. What are your guys' takes on the 2 pitchers that we have picked up, and what else do you guys think is coming? Especially with Kyle Tucker. Speaking of Dunedin, apparently visiting the facility down in Florida.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to me that, to your point, they had such a good thing going on, and they haven't, as far as the Blue Jays roster, we haven't lost a lot, Jason, to your point. We're only adding those pieces to it. And Dylan Cease is just one of those guys that I believe the stat was that since 2020, him and Kevin Gossman have the most strikeouts in Major League Baseball, period.
Yep.
So that's just insanely intriguing. And it seems like we're going to have the best mustache group in all of pitching staffs for the, near foreseeable future. It's going to be insanely cool to see what they've done. But to your point, they have went full in, just like they went this whole season in on everything, and they're ready to go. And you have been hearing rumors even to the point where Kyle Tucker, I'm not to the point where he's boarded the plane yet, but he was apparently down Dunedin checking out the wonderful fun that is the, Blue Jays spring training complex and everything like that. So very cool stuff. Travis, what do you think of the Blue Jays quickly adding so far this offseason?
Yeah, I think as a fan base, as a clubhouse, anytime you see ownership willing to make those moves and solidify, maybe some areas you think you can get better at. But for a clubhouse perspective, I never played that many games, but I've talked to guys who have gone there. I've talked to coaches who have been a part of it. And I think the big challenge, right, that guys face is they've never really played that deep into the offseason. So how you adjust your offseason training, I think anytime you can bring in fresh bodies like they're doing with quality stuff to add to a roster is going to only enhance the ability for this team to bounce back. And I think in my limited experience up there in Toronto with ownership, they've just been waiting for this moment, right, to be able to invest into a winner and create something that's sustainable for a fan base and a country that deserves a winner.
There you go. Liz, welcome to the party.
Speaking of a Canadian winner.
How was curling? Did you crush it?
Oh, she's on mute. Hurry hard on the mute button.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, Liz. We can't hear you.
I hurried so hard.
There it is. There we go.
This is the thing, Brent. Sorry, I apologize for being late, Travis. I was at a curling event for my employment, and it turns out that curling is really fun. It's just like it's a lovely sport. I think it's Scottish, should be Canadian. And, guys, I hurried the hardest that I could hurry.
There you go.
So anyway, I will say, I'm going to just do a little bit of the Kyle Tucker talk. I am not bought into it. I get too scared. But I will add on Travis's point. It is nice to have an ownership that, is finally winning. Last year, I was like, I hate these guys. I don't know what they're up to. But now that we've had a taste of the World Series, they're like, we are locked in. And why I love this vibe is our team is quite young. Our superstars are quite young. I hope they lock up Bo. But I think this is exactly where I always wanted to be, I wanted to be the sexy offseason target. And it's so cool to be here. And I think that, I think my question back to Travis is that, where do you think the Jays could be next year?
I mean, it's tough to make that prediction, early December. But I think having had the experience, is only going to help the younger players on that roster. And I think what we saw from top to bottom, the way guys stepped up on the big stage in the big moment, as a young player who'd never got to play in the playoffs until later in my career, it was still a completely different experience than a regular season game. So the fact that they have that experience under their belt, I think makes them a favorite, right, going into next year to be able to build off of that, depending on how some of these transactions work out over the next couple of months.
Can you explain a little bit about what it was like to play postseason for the first time and how it differs from the regular season and why you would be more seasoned having already done it?
Yeah, my first game, I was on the bench, but it was against the Cincinnati Reds, and Johnny Cueto was pitching in Pittsburgh, and it was a blackout. The stadium was rocking. I was standing on the bench, and I'm looking up, and I'm getting chills just talking about it. It's one of those life experiences. I've got a taste of it in the Rogers Center on opening night, and never got to do it in the playoffs. But when you have a city that's pulling for you, the fan base is locked in, the energy's electric. And you have, more media around, there's more responsibilities that come with it. But I think to go back to what these guys did this year, especially a lot of first experience at that level, I think the combination between young players and veterans is always a mix that you want to see in a clubhouse to give those guys the best opportunity to go out and make the most of the moment and not feel overwhelmed, which is very easy to do. And I experienced my first time.
Yeah. That was a hell of a team you played on there that year in Pittsburgh too. You had some crazy guys to be in that. Speaking of, that was probably a fun dugout to be in too, with knowing some of those characters.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Was that the year Clint Hurdle was still the manager?
Yeah, I played for Clint every year. So we went to the wild card in 13, 14, 15. And 13 was after a 20-plus year stretch of no winning in Pittsburgh. And if you've ever been to a Pittsburgh Steelers game, you know the fan base, or a Penguins game, you know the fan base is there. But we as an organization hadn't won. So it made it even more special to have that first opportunity for the city in 20-plus years. And there was no letdown in terms of the emotion that you could feel from the fan base in the stadium that night.
That's awesome.
It's interesting you would bring that up, Travis. I actually feel like, and I've seen this, so I've been, as the Jays, did what they did this year, and I feel like there was a more of a spotlight put onto the playoffs as it being the most watched playoffs, ever. I feel like a lot of teams are talking about, or a lot of pundits and media are talking about two teams right now. One of them being the Jays and talking about their ability to potentially get back to where they were this year, and the other one is Pittsburgh's sort of like everyone's talking about them looking like they could potentially have like a meteoric rise from where they've been for the last couple of years to potentially contending. I don't know how much you keep up with Pittsburgh currently, but what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful, right? As a former Pirate, I'm hopeful as a former Blue Jay. I'm hopeful, Seattle Mariners. I watched my childhood team battle the Jays in one of the most unbelievable series I've ever watched. And I think going just to the perspective of being a baseball fan and watching the playoffs this year, it was like, yes, this is it. We can all talk about how long the games and how 162, it's tough to stay locked in, but people were dialed in. And in terms of Pittsburgh, I think that the transition in leadership there in the dugout, some of the guys they brought in on the major league staff, I haven't followed the roster moves quite as much, but again, that's a fan base that's hungry for a winner. I root for that clubhouse. I root for that roster, even if I don't know the guys anymore, because I want to see that city the same way I root for Toronto, to really get that experience to enjoy, and for the players, right, to experience what winning baseball feels like in a big fan base like that.
Yeah.
I hope all the best for Pittsburgh. They have such an embarrassment of riches right now. They don't capitalize on the fact that Paul Skeens is incredible.
I'm tuned into that. Like, what are they gonna do with Skeens? And then their ballpark is gorgeous.
It is top notch. How was it like playing in that ballpark? Because do you get distracted by that insanely beautiful fun where that is in the city, Travis, or is it just one of those just nice parks to play in?
It's my favorite in the summertime when the weather's right, because the backdrop, like you mentioned. I think one of the cool things, former Blue Jay, AJ Burnett was my teammate there, and they put the bat signal out on the buildings in the outfield when he would pitch, because they called him Batman, which, I mean, just the little things like that. You got the river over the outfield. I think, part of me tried to hit too many balls in the river while I was there, where maybe I should have just stayed up the middle. But it was one of those stadiums I didn't get to play in prior to being a Pirate. And then when I got there, I was like, man, this is really cool, and really enjoyed the experience there.
That's awesome. So that was actually one of the questions that was submitted to us. Obviously, we know where you spent your major league tenure. As you wandered around the country, played baseball through all the levels, all these places, are there any places that stood out to you that were like, oh, this is a really nice place, or some places you had some great stories that just had the vibe that you were looking for while you were on your baseball journey?
Yeah, I'll start with Toronto. I mean, I think it was the best kept secret in North America. I think there was a spotlight that was shined on the city, the culture, the experience for a lot of the media members and former players who got to go up there without having to worry about playing a game. So I think starting with that, I got to play, Pittsburgh's a different city, but the experience there was genuine. We kind of got to see that city grow alongside the organization. And then going through the minor league stops, I spent too many years in Las Vegas, but I did get to see some of the suburban areas of Las Vegas, not just living life on the strip. So it was kind of cool because there are some really nice areas around there. And then really, I could say Omaha is a place I never want to live in. Definitely lived in a few cities where it's like, you know what, it served its time, its purpose, and all the respected people who love their city where they live. But we played in a field out there in Omaha where there was no stadium to block wind. So I played in the coldest baseball game of my life and the hottest baseball game all within a matter of 4 months, which is a pretty intense experience.
That is wild. And that's exactly what that area of the country can do to you. But that's just crazy. Tangent on that, because you mentioned all the wonderful time you spent in Las Vegas with the 51s at the time. First off, I believe you were partners and teammates with Mike McCoy. Do you have any idea how many frequent flyer miles that gentleman had to have racked up, being basically the 26th guy?
Mike was my roommate that year. So it was, we would go to breakfast, all the time on the road, wake up, you got your guys on the road you go to breakfast with. And yeah, Mike and I were really close that year. We obviously laughed a lot at how many air miles he was racking up and just the amount of transactions. And I think, has it gotten better? I haven't followed kind of the transaction history as much, but seeing what some of these guys go through in one season, I know we don't need to feel sorry for professional athletes, but that's a really tough way to live throughout a 6-month stretch where you just don't know what city you're going to be in.
Man, I think the minor leagues, we got to feel bad for them because that's a hard go. And even like when you first make the majors, that's still hard too, eh?
Yeah, well, in Vegas, the facilities were not what they are now. Now they have a beautiful ballpark. I mean, it's first class all the way around. We were playing in a glorified convention center. The clubhouse was very tight-knit in terms of your space and your interaction with your teammates. But I will say, I was lucky to play with a lot of good veteran guys. I know Mike was a little bit older than me, even though he didn't have a lot of service time. I think about Chris Woodward, who's been a longtime coach at the major league level, Jason Lane. There were some really, really special relationships that I had a chance to develop in that city. And yeah, sure, we went out with a few other guys and had our time and experienced the strip and all the things that come with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I don't know. Have you guys seen? I guess the A's. I don't know if they're going to be called that when they move to Vegas. But have you guys seen that Las Vegas has launched a thing now? It's right down on the strip, and you can go and there's a 3D rendering of the new stadium. Like you walk, it's maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, and you walk around it, and everything's virtual, and you can touch on stuff, and it would show you the views. It's so rad.
Yeah,
it's
a wild ballpark they're working on. It really is.
I guess, Travis, you've spent time in Vegas. How do you feel about the feasibility of a long-term baseball team in Vegas? Is it a baseball town?
I mean, that's a question I think that will be interesting. I think if you look at the NFL experience, I haven't been to the stadium. I kind of watched it as it was being built. I think you're going to attract a lot of fans from other organizations or fans of other teams that are coming into play in Vegas. So, the city of Vegas as a whole, to my understanding in years I've lived, it's blown up in terms of population and development and stuff. So there are a lot of kind of suburban areas where I think you can draw and build a fan base. And then, how many people from the Oakland experience are going to be willing to go to Vegas if they still like the organization?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the pictures that Jason was referring to.
I think the Golden Knights, have shown that the Golden Knights fans, when they originally, were they going to move the team there, everyone was like, oh, the only people you're going to get are the out-of-towners coming to watch the game. And that's not true at all. Like, the Vegas Golden Knights have created their own fan base. Their games sell out. It's crazy busy down there by the stadium. And it's interesting for basically an entire state that didn't know anything about hockey. They have completely bought in to that team. When we went, I've been to a game down there. The people beside me were asking, they knew I was Canadian. They were asking me questions about the game. I was like, this is awesome. This is how you want a fan base to react to a new sport. So baseball will do fine. Nothing really fails in Vegas.
Well, you can just keep throwing money at it. There's that whole thing. So I did find some of the pictures that you were referring to here, Jason, and this is it. I'm very interested to see what this thing looks like in real life too, because these are just some of the models to what it looks like from the outfield.
It's a gold shiny globe.
Exactly, and then they have a big model of it set up that you can actually see the inside of the ballpark. Then you got the view of the elephant here.
I guess they're keeping the A's name and the elephant. All right.
Yep.
I hope they go with a
I thought
different.
was very cool. The Jason's piece.
I hope they
But
go with a
Trav,
different color for that roof. It's underrated how hard it is to see a white baseball and a gray, gray backdrop. I know we
Yep.
deal with clouds, but the depth perception and the whole idea of being able to see the ball off the bat is pretty important as somebody trying to catch a fly ball.
Yep.
because they have this, but it looks like here at the top that it's kind of like a white background, which is even worse. Travis, you played in the time frame when you could play at the Twinkie Dome in Minnesota.
Oh yeah,
seeing a ball at that thing had to have been the nightmare of all nightmares.
You're kind of running around with your like a chicken with your head cut off when you can't see the ball, but you think you have an angle. It's kind of like losing a ball in the sun, but it's so much more uncomfortable because it's not the sun. It's just this big white backdrop. But I will say that was a great place to hit. I really enjoyed hitting there.
So where was your favorite place to hit, or was it playing in Minnesota?
I think Toronto is one of my favorites. I think, again, let's be real. If there was more of an outside element to it, we have to have the roof for all the reasons, but it's different than a Pittsburgh, right? But the ability to take batting practice in there and hit in the game, you're not dealing with elements, right? And the ball travels pretty well there. So I always enjoyed hitting in Toronto. I think Pittsburgh, again, that backdrop, you step out of the box, you kind of reset, you look at the buildings out there, that's pretty cool. And then you can go through the history of places like Fenway. I got to make my debut in Old Yankee Stadium, which was pretty cool. But I think statistically speaking, Fenway wasn't my best place to hit versus some of these other parks.
Yeah. And I always wondered how much of that too was, you see it on TV, but from the perspective, obviously being in the batter's box and everything, Toronto seems to me like you would have a great view of the pitcher because of the backdrop that you have. Even in the new ballpark, it's got the black batter's eye and the blue wall. You got some contrasting colors there where the one that sticks out to me as the current hardest place is, like I said, an outsider looking in. The new Minnesota Stadium has got all that green ivy and everything in the batter's eye. I would feel like that's just the way the light knocks off of things. I would have no idea how in the world I would be able to swing a bat and hit the damn thing, because it would just look like it's coming out of the green and with the pitcher's hand.
Yeah, I think shadows. It's important for fans to understand how, and this is where the playoffs. I always make this argument, usually in group chats with my friends, where it's like we schedule games at such weird times where the shadow in the backdrop or the shadow between the mound and home plate has a significant impact on the hitter's ability to see the baseball. And there are stadiums like Pittsburgh where the sun would set and sometimes the batter's eye would be light, but it would be dark in the mound. So there's a lot of weird things that can happen with the backdrops. And again, like you're trying to see a baseball that's coming anywhere between 70 and 105 miles an hour, and you don't know which way it's moving. Your whole, depth perception and ability to pick up spin is what you're relying on as a hitter. So these are little nuances that I think for fans to understand. It's easy to say, this guy is struggling in a particular game, but oftentimes you got to give credit to the pitcher and the elements in that situation, because guys are just trying to guess what's the fastball here that I can get a swing off on.
Exactly. And
what's your favorite day? What's your favorite time of game?
I was definitely more of a night game guy. When you get the body clock set at 7:00 and then you got to wake up, your day starts 4 to 6 hours actually earlier. Usually you're not doing as much practice on the field, but I really appreciated the night game experience a lot more than the day game, especially if you played the night game and then you have the day game the next day. It's a little bit harder to bounce back.
Gotcha. So we were talking about, all these wonderful things of going here or there, all in your travels and whatnot. Your post-baseball career, I know you are traveling all over the world, or at least all over the United States, doing what you're doing and your coaching stuff and mentoring youth athletes. Where are some of these places that you've been taken to in that journey? Because like I said, I've seen all your social media stuff and everything. It looks like you're getting around.
Yeah, last night I was in Yakima, Washington, which is about 2.5 hours east of where I'm at, kind of Central Plains, kind of out there, compared to the west side. Let's see, I was in Austin, Texas, back-to-back weekends, one for the alumni of Major League Baseball Career Development Summit, which was awesome. Got to connect with JP, former Blue Jay, and meet some really cool people and talk about that transition of being a baseball player to not being a baseball player. I was there for a big ABCA Youth Summit the week before. And then, man, I got to go to South Carolina, spoke at a Lutheran church down there. I got to go to Brooklyn, New York, and speak at a Jewish community center. I've been to Springfield, Missouri. Again, I kind of joke with my wife, like I wanted to retire so I didn't have to travel as much. And it's much different than going on the 10 to 14-day road trips where you just don't see your family. But it is funny how you fall into these kind of old patterns when it comes to the pre-flight routines. And just, I guess there's a level of comfortability for me with travel because I've done it so much, but it's also not my goal is to be on the road for 40 or 50 weeks out of the year.
Yeah, 1,000%. Totally get you. Jason, I can see the wheels moving literally as you're.
Well, I keep forgetting that I'm going to have to force them to drive up the I-5 one of these times to Vancouver and at least show my kids how to hit once. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, one of the things, you know, that we've been able to do with this podcast, which I don't know that when I started on it, Liz, I'm sure you can speak to this as well, is, I mean, we've had a number of different guys on, all, you know, with the goal of improving mindset. And I think that, you know, one of the biggest things that I've learned sort of doing this and from coaching my kids and all the rest of that is, you know, you ask a kid, you know, how much of any sport, be it baseball or anything, is mental. And, you know, your average answer is probably 50% or 60% or more. And then you ask them directly, how often do you train that part? And the silence is deafening when they don't really know how to answer, or they realize that they don't train it mentally. So, I mean, you know, I like to watch a lot of the stuff that you do, Trav, and I've got a ton of respect for you and the guys who played, who've now been able to take that and turn it into, you know, such a positive thing for so many people. So, I mean, I think that that's part of what you know, having you on this episode was all about was, you know, the people who've helped us along the way. We want to be able to make sure that they realize that you affect us as well. Like, I mean, being able to hear the stories, like Craig and I still talk about that the first time we heard that Cito story, like we're 12 years old. Like, you were sitting there telling a couple of 12-year-olds an awesome story that I'll never forget. So thanks for that. And just, I love hearing all this stuff. It's getting a little nostalgic on the 500th episode.
There you go.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. I'll just say this. I mean, what you guys have accomplished, right, in terms of your process and sticking with it, I'm sure there were times that weren't always easy, right, in this process. Like, do we keep going? And just like any journey in any career, you put in a lot of work, and it's good for you guys to be able to celebrate that hard work. I know your listeners are appreciative of what you pour into this thing and how it's evolved over the years. And I think just platforms that we can share, right, and connect as human beings and have these normal conversations that you're not going to get from a reporter in the clubhouse, right? So you guys are providing fans kind of a window into who we are as people outside of just what we do on the field. And I'm grateful for that, and you guys sharing your platform with me.
And we love having you here, buddy. And it's like you're reading right off of the cue cards perfectly on that one, because that's exactly the goal we have here. We just want to have fun. We never wanted to be that show that we're ambushing people with weird questions or anything like that. We want to be able to hear the stories. And we've had yourself on lately. We've been getting repeat visits from Rance Mullinix because I think he just loved the vibe that we have here. And he's on next week, party people. So make sure you join in. Papa Rance coming for more stories.
He's a beauty, huh? I've had to connect with him, alumni events, and I always, you know, you get a chance to just ask him a question and let him go, because he's got a lot of really good stories.
He's the best, man. I really enjoyed Rance. We're like, Rance, what's your favorite stadium ever? And he's like, Exhibition Stadium. And you're like, what?
And then hearing the full reasoning why and all the stories that came along with it perfectly.
The best.
So, Travis, that's some of the fun that I wanted to be able to celebrate and goof around with you tonight a little bit. As you're hanging out in these alumni events, interacting with your old teammates and goofing around, are there any memories or any certain stories that you would be, you know, prevalent that you would like to share with the collective tonight?
Yeah, I think, you know, no, you're good. I think starting with JP Arancibia, right? Former Blue Jay. That's just my roommate in spring training for 5 or 6 years. And we talked about before the show, living on Clearwater Beach and being young and being in the big leagues and just doing
being
stupid
the cutest
things.
Guys on the team. Like, you guys were the cutest guy, and you knew it. Like, let's be honest here. You and JP we're total babes. So
stop it. My face is already red, but now I'm blushing. But for us, I got a good story actually. This is 2011, and we had a good group of young guys who like to mess around and have a good time. And I don't remember who was the ringleader in this, but they decided to buy, I think it was 10 mopeds. So 10 different guys on our either major league roster or top prospect list bought mopeds. And for some reason, I'll toot my own horn, smart enough to know that this was a dumb decision. So I didn't buy the mopeds. But I watched these guys pull into the parking lot the first day like they were a biker gang. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Needless to say, I don't remember if it was Alex or it was Alex at the time was the GM, and that got axed very quickly because they're like, guys, what are you doing? Like the risk and the reward here. But I will say, because we lived on Clearwater Beach Island, we would ride the scooters to dinner. And funny enough, I would hop on the back of JP's, right? So you imagine two big guys on a moped, like we're talking Dumb and Dumber style here. And we cruise up to the restaurant, and we'd sit down at the bar, and these guys would take off their helmets and set it on the bar and order their dinner. It was just like the stuff that we did at that point was pretty funny to look back on, even though I'm sure, ownership and the front office wasn't too happy that these guys decided to invest in a two-wheel vehicle.
Yeah, either way, a moped at least is, it's a moped,
Wait, okay, I have a question about this. Would ever the front office or anybody be like, no, please don't do this? Like, if you're like, I'm bull riding in the off season, would they ever be like, you can't be doing that? Stop doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we have all the time.
Yeah, we have contractual obligations, right? So there's a risk and reward. If we get injured, outside of training for our sport, like there's liability that falls on us, right? As we sign those contracts. And again, you're trying to balance this whole experience of being a person. For me, I'm 20, 21, 22 through kind of the prime years in Clearwater Beach. So it's like trying to find this balance and going through what would be my college experience and having a lot of money at the time and being able to kind of do whatever I wanted. Like there's not really a manual for that kind of thing. So kind of back to what you talked to about the alumni experiences, it's just understanding, how many of these guys I met when we were so much younger, and to be able to laugh at all the dumb stuff that we did and a lot of the fun stuff that we did too. And then being able to connect on a deeper level. I think that's where JP and I get to speak on the mental transition of retirement, right? We've talked about it on the show, and just being able to have former teammates come up to me over the course of 15 or 16 years. And they're like, I shared a clubhouse with you, and I never knew you were going through this, and I was going through it too, right? In our own ways. And I think these are the moments where we kind of humanize the experience of all the cool stuff and the money and the things that come with being a Major League Baseball player. But like getting down to the core, like we are just human beings, right? We've worked really hard to become great at what we do. But a lot of us are struggling with this identity of how do you be a young 21-year-old kid living in the big city of Toronto with all the expectations that you have for yourself and other people. And everybody's got a little bit different story when it comes to the hierarchy or how their career progressed. But I think that's where, for me to be able to share those stories with fans is important, because I again, be a fan, root for your team, be the hockey fan of the outfield if that's your thing, but understand there are human beings wearing those jerseys. And, if we can warm up to you, we'll share some stories and have some fun.
Travis, what is the dumbest thing you or a teammate or anyone you know in baseball has bought in their first couple of years?
Mopeds.
Mopeds is probably top of the list. Again, there's a lot of stories out there of athletes going broke, and I think there's spending habits. There's things like, watches can be an investment, but I've also never bought a watch that was over $200, right? There's just certain things I think when you get to know people. I've seen guys walking around with, full head to toe designer gear, and that was never really me, right? Like my wife bought me a Gucci backpack one year, and I'm just like, not really my style kind of thing. But there are, guys that spend a lot of money on jewelry. Again, another thing I was never really big on. You see,
no chains.
No chains. I used to buy them on the beach. I used to buy them on the beach in Mexico from the vendors for like $15, right? Like I was never somebody who was going to spend money on the bling bling, but I definitely played with some guys who, they're wearing these $50,000 chains out there on the field. And I'm just like, I sure you can afford it, do it, but I just never something I could get behind for myself.
I know a lot of the guys now, I actually just watched a thing on Chad Ochocinco. He had his house robbed one time. and they, there was this whole big deal about it, and they're like, he's like, well, everything they took was fake. And they're like, what? And they're like, yeah. It looks like it's millions and millions of dollars worth of jewelry. It's worth about $6,000 total, everything they took. And then he actually came out and other guys from NFL were like, yeah, most of our stuff is fake. And I'm like, what? Like, really? So pretty brilliant.
It just looks good,
for
man.
them. Yeah,
Not the facade.
Liz, I thought of the answer
let's
for
go.
myself though. I bought. You remember the Stunner Shades era? This is early 20s for me.
Yep.
I bought some Dolce and Gabbana Stunner Shades. Right, I listened to Lil Wayne. I thought it was bad. So it had rhinestone DGs on the side, and I used to wear these things, and I thought I looked so sweet. And then I finally went down to a wedding down in Mexico, and one of my wife's friends comes up to me and goes, "Hey, that's nice. Your wife let you borrow those glasses." And I kind of just looked at him like, you're right. Like, I'm 100% that guy right now who's walking around thinking he's so cool. I mean, this is 10 plus years ago, right? And they had kind of been in the drawer for a few years. I'm like, I'm gonna pull these out again, see if they're still cool. And the first guy, and he's one of those guys, I'd walk up to him and say the exact same thing. Yeah. So it was that humility that I needed to then be like, what are some of these things that I thought were so cool when I was 20, 21, 22 that now I'm just like, why would you ever think that you should be wearing that type of sunglasses?
I'm sad that someone was mean to you, but I'm happy that you got checked.
Yeah, it was more of a playful thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why I love Canadians, because we can throw some jabs. You all right? Jason, I just saw some lights, man.
Yeah, bud, you good?
No, yeah, that was an ambulance going by the other way. I was gonna say that I'm gonna lose you guys here as we're about to enter into the abyss of the north here. But
get your last one in,
quickly.
bud.
You guys can keep going. Trav, thank you so much, man. It's an honor to have you every single time. We look forward to having you every single time we can get you, and nabbing any of your friends. Obviously, we're looking forward to that in the coming episodes. Liz, I never met a girl who got hit in the face with a baseball that I liked more than you.
Thanks, bud.
And Craigers, I mean, we've been brothers from another mother for 3 years now, and 4 years almost, and never met in actual person. So we're going to change that this year.
Oh, that's happening. That's not going to be lingering on the to-do list for much longer. We're going to make it work. Good deal, buddy. We hope you safe travels. Say hi to the family. Right. I'm glad they put up with our shenanigans for half.
Yeah, take it easy.
See you, buddy.
So, wait, Travis. Wait, hold on. I have another question for Travis. What was your walk-up song when you played?
I started with Lil Wayne. I'd say the longest tenured walkout song was "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana. Seattle guy.
That's so.
Yeah, but I definitely went through some Lil Wayne, some Drake. Again, I tried to mix the grunge Seattle guy with kind of the hip hop.
When I would have been seeing you, you would have been Drake or Lil Wayne. There was a time around about 2000, maybe 11. Everybody had Drake. Everybody on the Toronto team, except for Adam Lind for a while, who had Britney Spears.
Lind was doing,
No, but it's like he had It's Will I Am and Britney Bitch. Whoa. It was actually that slapped. So good.
Hey, Adam is one of the most off the beaten path, but best guys. He just pulls some stuff out where you're like, I never would have expected you to have that as your walkout song, even knowing him personally. And I spent a lot of time with Adam and his wife and his kids as we were teammates. So, yeah, a good call right there, because he definitely goes against the grain when it comes to some of these things you wouldn't expect.
When he played, he married a Toronto girl, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Right on.
I went to their wedding, and just beautiful couple, beautiful family, great people.
Yeah. Nice. Talking about people that carried a big stick after listening to Britney Spears, right?
Man, well, that thing, this is my problem. It's like, boys don't pick girls for their walkout songs. So when you see Adam Lind, you're like, man, you see us. And when you see David Snider with Pink Pony Club, you're like, man, you see us? Because girl jams, they're important too.
Yeah, I enjoyed just even hearing it through the TV, that the Pink Pony Club, and my wife and my daughter enjoyed hearing that too.
Yeah.
It's too fun. So I guess on that note, what was the weirdest walk-up song you heard in the midst of while you were hanging out in dugouts over the years? Was anything that stood out that was an oddball one that was like, really? Wait, what? Or made you turn your head on some rookie that debuted in a game that you happened to be playing on, or something like that? Was there anything awkward that you remember?
I wouldn't say one sticks out in particular. I think, when you consider how many Latin players there are, you're going to hear some Latin music. We hear it all the time in the clubhouse, right? And I also married a Mexican, so I'm engulfed in this. But there's definitely some of the songs with the beats and the horns and the noises where you're just kind of like, I don't know if I should rock to this or if I need to close my ears. So there's definitely a lot of country music. There's a lot of hip hop.
Man, Colby Rasmus had the wildest one, which was like, it was Colby's was at the time was like, these good old boys talking about trucks. And every time Colby, like, that's Colby Rasmus, man.
Alabama through and through. Yeah. And again, you play with guys from the South, you hear a lot of this. So again, from a cultural standpoint, I got to hear a lot of different music, but I wouldn't say there was one walkout song where I was like, but I did have teammates like Kevin Millar who taught me, when you're in a slump, tell them to change your walkout song to Cold as Ice, or, something that's talking about how freezing you are right now, just to be able to make people laugh and make yourself laugh.
So there was
change it up every once in a while.
Yeah, there was a prank pulled on Josh Donaldson one time. I think it was at the game where they changed his walk-up song to Mbop, and apparently that made him very mad. And I love Mbop, so give me that back. Let's go.
Yeah,
I will say in Round Rock in 2017, I was on the offense early in the season when it came to the clubhouse pranks and the Texas boys. We were in Texas, and I would throw shade at them being a Northwest guy. And one day I came into the clubhouse and my entire locker had been removed. All my stuff was removed, and I had boots with spurs and like tight Wranglers. And so I went out into BP, like full uni with the cowboy hat and the boots and everything.
Yep.
And then that night they played, I don't know, George Strait or some country artist that I've never even listened to. And it's like, all right, this is what makes the game fun.
Did you look good in the outfit?
That was Now the bigger question is, they have those sunglasses on and just completely rock it out.
Yeah, no Dolce and Cabana's by 2017. Those were gone.
Travis, when you were in a slump, what was some weird shit you did?
Some we can't talk about on air.
Yeah.
I think the superstitions are. If I could go back and be less superstitious throughout my career, I would be. I think routines are important, but there was so much anxiety for me at times when I had this routine. Like I had to be out the line to stretch at a certain time, and if I was late, it would trigger this whole experience. But to get out of a slump, I think you find something, right? Whatever you do the night before that works, and you stick with that. And I was guilty of that a lot in my career. It could be eating the same, lunch for 30 days straight if I was hitting right. It could be going to the same restaurant, just these little kind of routines that we build in. We convince ourselves sometimes as athletes that that's the reason we're having success, which is obviously not the case. But when you play 162 games, you're always looking for something that's going to shift that energy into like, yep, I got this. Let's go.
I mean, I think it's just honestly about finding control and ways to control something you can't. I think for women, it's called getting bangs. If you know a girl who gets bangs, all of a sudden you got to be like, are you okay? And I know when the Jays were in the World Series, I just didn't cut my hair. And because I thought if I cut my hair, my baseball team could lose. And now I can't
the same
cut my
hat
hair.
the whole playoffs.
Yeah, man, I got weird. I got like really weird about it. And all I can think of is all the baseball players being 20 times weirder. And how like I see that as like a striving for control over something bigger than you in any way that you can.
Yeah, I wouldn't shave, and I have a horrible beard. Like I can grow an okay mustache, but the beard is patchy. It's not fun to look at. And I look back at some of these pictures now with my kids, and I'm just like, and I'll still let it grow once in a while, but it's like I was so superstitious about if I had a hit streak, that thing is now getting touched. And again, it's not any good to look at once it's grown out. So, I enjoyed the hit streaks, but I also enjoyed the day that came where I got to shave the nastiness off my face.
There you go. That's good and bad.
Yeah. So got a fun one here from our friends in the chat, other than our buddy Troy Lyons, brother Lyons, giving us our congrats on the 500th episode. But we also have Mike B here is wondering if there was a pitcher that you just loved to hit against.
Kevin Slowey, without a doubt. He's now part of the Players Union. I tried to convince him to come back out of retirement when I connected with him because he was a guy I hit my first home run off in Toronto, and then we went to we were talking about Minnesota earlier. I went there and hit another home run off him in Minnesota. I think career batting average was around 700. So he was a guy that I look forward to seeing anytime we were matched up against.
There you go. Kevin Slowey actually he had some really good seasons there too. So if you were getting after him, that's even more exciting. So
it's funny. The AL Central back then, we used to joke it was 88 to 92 sinker slider, right? And those guys knew how to pitch, right? But they were not. that division was kind of known compared to the East, where you're facing these guys who are 93 to 98. Now everybody throws 95 to 100. We do see some starters who are lower than that, but I think that's where the evolution of the game always blows my mind when you sit there. I even felt it the last 4 or 5 years in AAA. You used to have one guy in the bullpen who would throw 100 miles an hour. Now there's 4 or 5 guys, and everybody, pretty much is sitting 95 plus or has some kind of weird angle or release point or something that's going to play up velocity wise.
Do you think that the velocity will stop, or will humans keep creating better pitching robots from just, technology and training?
That's a great
Yeah, man, like, when does it stop?
I never thought we'd be, above 101, and now we're seeing 105. And it's
right?
like, when we faced Chapman early in my tenure with the Pirates, he didn't even know how to throw a breaking ball. And now you see guys who throw 100 plus and they know how to command 2 or 3 pitches. So it just makes I don't know. To answer your question, I'm curious to see how much the human body can take. But these guys are bigger, faster, stronger. The technology and the ability to train has gone to a level that I don't think we would have thought was achievable 10 or 15 years ago. So kudos to the people in that industry and all the players out there that continue to push that limit of what is our body capable of.
It's wild.
Yeah. It's amazing because, like I said, I played up into and through college, and I just like the amount of tools that are at your disposal at this point is just almost to the point of too much. And I just don't know how I'd even keep my head straight. We barely had video playing in college in a Division III baseball team here in New York. And so being able to just see all these things where you can get all the internet feeds, you can get Baseball Savant at the major league level, know what everybody's throwing. It's like and I think that's the Blue Jays this year. They had somebody that came in as the hitting instructor and just said, forget all that shit. Figure out what works for you, Travis, and do it.
Is that helpful? Like, did they have iPads in the dugout when you were playing? And like, was that helpful?
Again, I think anything's a tool, right? And it can be used and it can be helpful for certain people in certain situations with a purpose and intent behind it. But I think anything, right? You have we live in a culture now in a time, right, where we have a wealth of information, which we didn't have, right? For me as a kid growing up before the internet became a real thing where you could access information. Now it's like you can go online and learn from, the best in their craft at pretty much anything you want to learn from. So I think for players and hearing, that transition with the coaching staff in Toronto, I spoke with the assistant hitting coach, Hunter Mentz, I think. And we connected over the season to talk about 3A because he does some off-season training stuff with youth baseball. And just asking him the questions, right, of how he worked with Kirk through this process and other guys on their roster, where you get overloaded with this information and all these inputs when really you gotta simplify and refine the process to what works to the individual. And I think that's always the greatest challenge that coaches and organizations have is we get this wealth of information that I think all has a seat at the table. You have to be able to identify from an individual to individual basis how to integrate and implement that type of technology and input that's available to players. Because I was a guy who could get overly analytical. I also was one of the first guys, in Major League Baseball that carried around an iPad and filmed all of his BP sessions. I was doing that in 2014 and 2015. And then, fast forward 2 or 3 years later, it was standard. Every batting practice, there's cameras set up. So again, there's value that you can draw from that, but it was also something that I became reliant on at times in my career. I remember Buck Showalter kind of made a joke to the media about how much I carry my iPad around, and at the time wasn't hitting very well. So it's like you're always in kind of limbo of how much do I really need to go out there and prepare. And then you hear about guys like Shohei Ohtani, who I don't know what his routine is with video, and how he takes the analytics and filters in a way that's helpful for him. But, he's a guy who's got a pretty consistent routine of not hitting batting practice on the field. And I think when you see guys that are convicted in their process and they know what they need and they have coaches around them that can buffer the external inputs that don't need to be there, it's really setting a player up for success versus overloading them with all that information.
When did you abandon the information and just go back to fundamentals? Like, at what point were you like, nah, did it happen ever?
2009, when I got sent down to rebuild my swing, I was, again, I was guilty of being the guy who overworked and didn't work smart a lot. And it was like my ego was convinced that if I just took 300 swings, I would figure it out. And sometimes you have to get to that place of exhaustion. But I remember I had the hitting coach that year in AAA when I got sent down, who I had in AA, and he was a guy who really taught me how to build a routine and what specific drills worked for me and why we did them. And we spent like a couple weeks in the cage where the drill work and everything was it was great. But then going out of the game, right, I was stuck in my head and unable to trust the work. So he finally said, don't come to the cage for a couple of days, right? And just that break, that mental break of grinding through mechanics, right? We were even deep into analytics at this point. Sometimes you just have to have somebody that comes and puts their arm around you and say, hey, man, it ain't the work in the cage, right? It's you trusting your ability to go out there and just be an athlete. So I think that you see that internal struggle, I would say, with every athlete that you watch on TV, and the ones who perform consistently at the highest level have that ability to, when things start to tip out of balance, they're good about getting that back onto balance, versus a lot of us that just kind of fall, and then we hit rock bottom, and now we're kind of going through this rebuild process.
Yeah, that's interesting. Really, really cool stuff. But it's about what works for you. At like your point, you mentioned Ohtani. The guy's a machine. That's all he does: baseball. But it's all about process and keeping things moving, and maybe a few superstitions thrown in there too. But it's what it is. But that's really cool. Liz, do you got any other questions you would like to ask before I start giving some of our last few field questions here? And I want to have some fun
I have a question about feelings. How did it feel when Buck Showalter jammed you on media like that?
It was such a weird transition for me going from Pittsburgh, where I had an experience with Clint Hurdle in the dugout where they made a move to pinch hit for me, and I had some choice words for him and the bench coach because they decided to double steal. And at the end of the day, the guy got thrown out. The guy who they pinch hit for me didn't get to hit. Like, we as a bench unit rooted for each other.
Yeah.
I said some things, went upstairs, changed my shoes, came back down, and immediately apologized. And Clint looks at me and goes, hey, what you said wasn't wrong, but the delivery was, he used a different word in that situation. I'm like, 100% you're right.
Yep.
So we had built that trust and that connection, and they really valued communication. And then when I went to Baltimore, Buck Showalter has a tremendous career, right, as a manager, but his style was so much different. There was so much guessing. You just didn't know where you stood, whether it was the lineup that day or what he really thought of you in a lot of the decision-making process. So I would say I was hypersensitive while I was there in Baltimore, but I also sat down next to Buck during games that I didn't play and would just pick his brain and listen to him call out a bunt before it would happen, right? So it's like there's different styles of managing. I think collectively we're seeing managers steer away from what they say, right, in the media, because they know it's getting back to their players, and that can have an impact on the culture. But there's also a lot of guys who played for Buck Showalter that didn't bother them. And I think that's where, each individual player is going to receive that type of information differently. But at the end of the day, I don't have any ill will towards him. But in that moment, it was kind of like, does he think I'm crazy because I'm doing this? Because this is a big reason in my mind that at the end of 2014, the second half that I had that ended up getting me traded there was built on me actually filming the swings and doing the work and realizing what is working and how to stay consistent with that.
Wow, really cool. Well, I love that you had that piece to take with you, but yeah, sorry, I got nothing.
No, it's insane that it's insane that it was stigmatized to bring an iPad around with you, right? And try really hard.
That's the part I don't get.
Again, but it's trying too hard at times. Yeah. And I think that's where, it's the same thing we're talking about with all this information is how much do you really need, right? How much is it physical and how much is it mental or mental emotional connection that you just don't have? And you see a lot of guys who get stuck in their head, and definitely in spring training that year when I got traded over there, it was a new experience. And it took me until the end of spring training to finally get things to click and start to play well going into the first month of the year. But it was, again, a new space, a new environment. I'm trying to be who I am. And you get caught up worrying, just like any workplace, right? You get caught up worrying about being yourself. And I think the great managers or the great cultural leaders in the game of baseball and in a business or whatever sport understand that you have a collective group of individuals. We don't want to just say everybody do whatever you want to do, but being able to let guys be themselves is important.
Yeah. And everybody is different. You've seen this even with the youngsters that you get to play with and get the out on the field and get them coached up and whatever it is. Not the same thing works for every kid, and the same thing is true for every adult to that point too. You're not going to be able to get the tee work, we might get some kid going, but then somebody is okay, you got to do soft toss, or maybe the guy just wants to play outfield and just shag baseballs the whole time. It's just whatever it might be. There's just those certain things that will click with whatever individual it is. And for you, it was have the iPad with you and then analyze your swing a bunch. So good deal. I want to have a little fun on the episode here as we are just first things first. I got to make sure we get the wonderful paperwork out of the way here. Our friends at Jay Birdie, if you have not seen the wonderful commercial that Liz did and the awesome pine tree scented hat she's wearing, go ahead, Liz. If you got it
actually, okay, let's be real, guys. This is my hat. I got it from Jay Birdie, our new sponsor. Here it is. It's the Jay Birdie bird holding a Christmas tree. It's got lovely green, whatever these are called. And it's just a nice hat. But the wildest thing about it is, guys, it actually smells like pine. So I'm reminded of Christmassy fresh, times when I wear the hat. Also, man, it's a snapback. I got a smaller head, what with being a girl and all. And it fits great, man. It fits awesome. And I've been getting compliments on it all week. And I guess time will tell if I'm responsible enough to own a white hat, but I think I can pull it off.
I know I can. And all those white panel hats that I know you had for a little bit there in Travis when they went to the Flashback Fridays and everything, I get that yellow stain in 5 minutes and it just never goes away. You can't get rid of it. It is what it is, but that hat pops, Liz. Well,
yeah, it's good. It's a good one, man. And you guys can get it at the Jay Birdie website. Our sponsors up there. DMS for a discount code.
There you go. Or just check out the website. It's going to literally pop up right in your face.
Canada's baseball brand.
So,
thank you.
I will say that the award for the most Wayne's World commercial might go to you, because that was spot on. It was almost the point where it's the only thing people do is because they get paid or something like that. It's very, very fun. But anyways, on that note, I wanted to talk about our wonderful history here for a hot minute. Just show where we're at, because I feel like reflecting is always a good thing that you got to do, and take the time to be able to just know where you came from, be humble about it, and goof around and have some fun with it. So obviously tonight, celebrating our 500th episode here, and way too many years, a lot of my time, and all of our wonderful partners that we've had on the way, you and Liz and Jason, and then Brandon and Adam before you guys. 500 episodes. Here we go with a badge, and we're going to just take a walk. And this is where it was the previous logo right before that.
I like that there's a beer in it and a bird, but also baseball.
Yeah. And to that point, that was always the barroom chat for Blue Jays fans. That was the whole point of having some kind of a weird logo to that point. One of my friends was kind enough to make this logo. It lasted for a very, very long time. And then I was like, I didn't want to have something that looked like it was ready to go on a hat. This is where it was. Right.
I like that. I think I might like that one the best, which is not the greatest logo, but I will tell you something, and Travis is going to know this too. When you're at the Sky Dome and the dome is open on a Friday night and the CN Tower is rocking, there's no better place.
It's beautiful. So that was where I officially went from where we were to having a podcast. That was the logo, because I literally could make it for free. So it worked out really well for a while. And then this is literally where it started.
Oh, I do like that one too,
sat down and drew this. This is my horrible handwriting, and it is what it is, because I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do?
Oh, it's right. Travis, what's your childhood team?
The Mariners.
Mariners, okay. You could probably draw the Mariners logo pretty okay. I cannot
Absolutely,
tell you.
Not as good as that. I mean, that's good artistry right there. I don't have
the Jays logo was so tremendously hard to draw as a child that I yearned for man, I wish we were the Yankees.
Just so you could.
Yeah.
Because this whole thing started, funny enough, with a joke. And at the time, we were wondering if, we were ever going to get, the wonderful culmination of, announcing that we have a Dan Schulman and Buck Martinez is the Blue Jays announcing group right now. But in 2017, it felt like a little bit of a oddity. The team wasn't doing so good. Pat Tabler sounded like he was phoning it in at that point, as much as he's a fun guy. It just didn't sound right. So some of us that were writing at the time at jaysjournal.com were like, why don't we just pick a game every month and we host a show online during the game, and we can see if we can trick Blue Jays fans into, muting the feed and coming and hanging out with us. And then it eventually, after we got a little bit of a following with that, they're like, well, why aren't you guys just doing this every week and having an actual podcast and goofing around? And here we are 500 episodes later, many weeks, and lots of great fun and fans and all that kind of stuff, and wonderful guests like Travis here. And it's been a wonderful ride now. So it is what it is. But I just thought it would be funny to share the culminating horrible doodling that has now gotten to the wonderful fun that we have now. And here we are having a great time.
Travis, what was your favorite Blue Jays uniform?
Not the powder blues, not because I don't like the old unis, but they put it the one piece run. If you got a little belly, the one piece just it doesn't fit the same. You can't tuck it in as well.
Yep.
So us bigger guys didn't love those jerseys. Rob Barajas definitely didn't like those. I think I got at the end of my career with the Jays before I got traded. I like those jerseys the most, and they're more the old school logo and kind of print with the stencil looking. The classic J hat that I played with for most of my career, I wouldn't say is my favorite of the uniforms there. But if in that tenure, I would say the black ones, we liked wearing those the most.
Sweet.
Yeah. The black ones did pop. I will give them that. But it was weird not seeing a ton of blue in it after having the classic, logo that we've been used to for so many years.
They dropped the word blue. They weren't the Blue Jays.
It was just Jays.
Jays. You wouldn't see Blue Jay anywhere in the stadium. But man, when I look back on those, I don't hate them. I'm like, those are, I call them sparkle jerseys because they had silver on them a little bit. And man, all of the kids in my family love those jerseys. They're black. As my nephew would say, that's tough. And I think that when they brought the City Connects back and they were black, kids lost their brain. And I'm good for them, man. I love the old powder blues. I've got to say I do own one that I never wear because it shows shadows, like you said. Various contour shadows. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think for me the worst ones ever was the muscle bird, where it's the Blue Jay doing this. Hate that.
That was rough for 1 year.
Looks like Poochie from The Simpsons. Anyway.
Yep. So Travis, as you talked out with us on the show, we wanted to make sure we were doing something fun in honor of you being a nice friend and helping us with some guests and whatever and whatnot over the last year. You hooked us up with Zach Lutz, who is actually going to join us in 2 weeks. We're very excited to chit-chat on some of the same youth baseball things like you've been chit-chatting with us on. But I wanted to do something fun and have some, nice way to end the shows on a joke and whatnot. So we did this little thing here where we're going to just have the sports clip of the week, and we're going to have it on our wonderful Fun with Social Media or right here on the show. And we have this. What I've been doing is picking a youth baseball highlight blooper, something fun, just great kid moment.
Never mean. That's
the whole point. We are here to have fun on this show and only fun. So this kid is having all kinds of.
He's gently prancing like a T-Rex all the way to first base.
Oh, man, I've coached at this level for this was the first year I wasn't in T-ball, and it is amazing the things you'll see these little kids do in the moment, the dancing, all the playing around like that. That's again, we talk to parents. That's what these kids are designed to do, is have fun. They don't need to run the bases perfectly. We'll work with them on that if we're their coaches, but just enjoy that vibe is awesome.
Also, is T-ball not a little bit young to be this is the sport of baseball? Just hit the ball, laugh, have fun with your friends.
Yeah, I think you could argue up until 10 or 12. That's not the way the system's designed now, but the way kids are designed is to be able to play. And I know in my childhood, I got to play a lot with my buddies in the cul-de-sac and at the park, and there's not a lot of kids, at least in the American culture, that still have those experiences because everything is so focused on the organized sports. But again, that's a message we're trying to get out to parents, is the ability to have that sandlot type of vibe for whatever sport it is you play. It's going out on the pond, right? Playing hockey with the people in the neighborhood. Those are the moments, right? That we develop skills in a place that we're not worried about mom and dad and the coaches being on top of us.
Yeah, man. I mean, the thing about baseball is it's cheap. You can play it most anywhere. One of my favorite things to do is, listen, you're not going to be surprised, but I can only hit a dinger, I don't know, maybe 100 feet. So it fits well in parking lots and various compact places. So I play a game with my nephews. It's called Tiny Dingers, where they're just can you hit us baseballs and we'll catch them because it fits, again, in the parking lot next to the house. And that's what we do. We spend time hitting tiny dingers. I'm good at throwing the ball, hitting it. And what's the game? It's a 500 up. What's the, there's 500 up. We play 500 up with my compact dingers, and man, it's special. Like even on my parents' farm, we play just in the front yard. And I think that like that's the thing. It's like you can just play baseball if you want to. You can just find a bat, a ball, and find some buds and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are most of my favorite childhood memories, is literally walking around the street and then just going, hey guys, we're going to the cul-de-sac. We're going to play baseball today.
There you go. And you make the bases out of whatever. Yeah.
Ball. It was just grab the gang, get them together, and whatever sport we all felt like playing. My friend Katie was the one that usually kicked all our asses. It's just how it was. She was the one that was the most athletic on the whole street. And to that point, it was just fun. That was what it was supposed to be. And that's what I love about watching these little highlights and things like that. And Travis, I can't say enough good things about what you and your team are doing at 3A Athletics. So I want to make sure you have your shameless self-promoting bit here. Microphone is yours. Tell everybody where to find your work and what you're up to.
Yeah, so we've been focused on building out partnerships with organizations, focusing on baseball and softball, but how we can partner with the leadership team from the board of directors to the directors and programs, help them establish a culture, right, that we're really trying to give to the kids and to the parents, and honoring the parents in this process, as well as the coaches who put a lot of time and energy into being with these kids, but they're underserved. And I think that for us is where we've really tried to focus the attention on how many organizations, within reason, can we partner with over the next 6 months to start to roll out some of this coach and parent content, as well as the leadership stuff. So check us out at www.3athletics.com. You can follow us on social medias at 3A Athletics on basically every platform other than X. So that's where you can find us. We'll have more information coming out here over the next month as these things start to go live. But I'm excited, as you guys have had to evolve over 500 episodes, right? There's pivots along the way. There's things you learn by doing it the right way and things you learn by not doing it the right way. And I think that's what's exciting for any of us that are on this journey in business is how do we build a platform? How do we connect with the customer who is the person that we're trying to have an impact in a positive way on their life?
Yeah. Once again, you're leading up on the cue cards, but great work. It's like, I know so we're going to end the show here on one last thing. And because of our wonderful new partnership with our friends here at Jay Birdie, make sure you, like I said, head over to their wonderful website and everything. We have a giveaway before next episode. So we're going to announce the episode next Wednesday during the beginning of the show when we have our buddy Grant Smelnick will be joining us. I have this lovely wall hanger that we are going to be giving away. Cool. So make sure you head over to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. Anybody that is subscribing to our YouTube channel is going to be able to have a chance to win this. So hit that up. That's going to be the easy one. And then the next one, because we're trying to, get you all to go to our YouTube channel, because that's where most of the chatting comes during these shows. I have another gift that Liz and I won this actually while we were at the ball game one day.
We did.
A Josh Donaldson signed autograph.
We did.
Our 500th subscriber on YouTube, because like I said, that's our new point where we're trying to push everybody to. I'm going to give this away to one of those 500 subscribers. So that's pretty good.
I loved Josh Donaldson for a little bit, and then I hated him. There you go.
It's one of the very contrasting players in Blue Jays history to get to that point. He is our MVP.
He's our MVP. I loved him until I hated him. Let's go.
Good deal, Blue Jays fans. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Travis, it is always a pleasure having you here. We cannot say enough good things about hanging out with you. Thank you very much for the stories. We hope we get to chat again sometime soon.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
And congratulations on 500, guys. That's awesome.
Appreciate you, bud. Thanks again, everybody. Tune in next week. We'll be having fun with buddy Rance Mullenix will be on the show. And then Travis's buddy Zach Lutz will be on the show to talk all things youth athletics and how to get better at baseball, too. So we'll talk to you soon. Until then, as always, let's go Blue Jays.
Let's go Blue Jays.
Woo!
Thank you for listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch at BirdwatchingGC and our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and get extra content, please consider joining to our Patreon at patreon.com/birdwatchinggc. Go Jays, go.
Woo!